Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to my home. Welcome to the office, and welcome to the morning grind. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host here today. So today we're going to continue with this series that we have been going on with the Right Club, which has become one of our favorites, and many of us are in a mad scramble to get ready for NaNoWriMo. And so if this is you, well, this has actually been extremely helpful because, yes, you can be a pantser or a plotter going into NaNoWriMo, but you know what? I am definitely on the plotter side. I like to have a structure for what I'm trying to write. And every time it seems like personally, I don't know what to write. And I said, okay, it's time to write, but I can't write. Why? Because I don't know what to write. Why don't I know what to write? Don't you have all these ideas in your head for the worlds and the stories and that? Yes, but I need the structure. I need the outline there. And then once that happens, we've been using the phrase, and it's been used in this this series, that it writes itself. Yeah, that once it's great when you get into that flow. That's the flow you want to be in, that you've got everything so structured, you know exactly what's going to happen, that the story just falls out and you write itself. So we're going to be taking a look. We haven't been going over the entire books because Adron Smitley is the author here, and he was very gracious to allow us in the community to have free download links for the Kindle. So I'm reading these off of a free Kindle. And by the way, I downloaded better Kindle reading software. I noticed mine said Kindle Classic, so that was probably old reading software. So we might have a better reading experience today as far as the software goes. But then obviously go and check these out. Get them for yourself. They're really going to help. I finished reading, which one was yesterday? Yesterday was a Stomping Kitten. No, yesterday Stomping Kittens. That was 2 days ago when we stomped kittens. Yesterday was Punching Babies. I did finish all of Punching Babies yesterday when I was after I did some work on the Kickstarter and went through all of that, and then did work on the plot for the movie based off of that briefly yesterday. I ran out of time. It took me a lot longer to work on the Kickstarter than I was expecting. So good morning, Phaser Wrist. Good morning, PH. Good morning. Oh, we have a bad, I don't know, Greedfall. We have a bad review on Greedfall for PS4 yesterday. Good morning, James. Good morning. Oh, thank you. Good morning, Zero the Blade. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. NaNoWriMo, yeah, it starts Tuesday. This is Sunday, right? Every day over here seems a lot like the same. So it starts on Tuesday. I'm not going to try to start writing at midnight. I'm going to try to be up early because I know a lot of people, some people try to do start writing at 12 o'clock that night. I'm not going to try to do that. I'm going to start writing first thing in the morning. Oh, Phaser Wrist says, by the way, Heath, my uncle said he got his mics yesterday and he's supposed to get his webcam sometime today and is going to screw around with them before emailing you about trying to do a live stream. Excellent, excellent. So we are going to yes, get him on Table Talk to have a discussion. He didn't have the equipment set up. So yes, I gave him some recommendations for an equipment setup, basic equipment setup, so that he can join us for a Table Talk live stream. That would be fantastic. Yes, I'm very excited too. Can you link the better Kindle software in the Discord? Well, maybe. It actually is just the Mac Kindle software. So I just went back to the Mac App Store. I don't know how we get a link for that. But I just went to the Mac App Store and I searched for Kindle, thinking that maybe there would indeed be an updated software for it. And there is indeed Kindle Classic in the Mac Store and Kindle in the Mac Store now. So I was using Kindle Classic, so I downloaded Kindle. So we'll see. I am so into the structure that I write all of my stuff in numbers. Hey, I'm not opposed to it. When you're trying to this is this section, this thing you could totally put together as a spreadsheet. Good morning, Lynn. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, Daniel says, it's not a cult, Ma. And then what were you doing? Punching babies and stomping kittens the day before. Exactly. Yes. My goal is 2,000 words a day. That's a lot. As long as I get them in, I'll be happy to not write at midnight. I'm too old for that. Okay. Let's see. Today, it took me longer to do my Kickstarter video than I was expecting yesterday, but I basically got it done. I'm going to do another pass on it tonight. I'm still going to let it cool for a little bit. Then I'm going to do another pass on it tonight and try to get it finished. So that means that as soon as I get done with the morning grind here, I'm going to be working on the plot for the story. I'm going to work on that basically all afternoon. I'm still going to try to take a break and get this other car cranked. I didn't get to do that yesterday. But today I'm going to work backwards. So I'm going to work on the plotting and get all of that done, or as far into it as I can over several hours. I'm not going to do anything else but worry about the plotting for several hours. Then I'm going to take a break and try to start a truck. Then I'm going to come back and work on the Kickstarter and the Kickstarter video. I posted a link last night to where I had gotten with the Kickstarter video. I am very happy with it. I'm going to share it right here. Like I said, it's not perfect. I'm kind of letting it cool. And in fact, I think there's some issues I'm hearing with the sound mixing that I'm going to change, but that's why I'm going to come back to it. But let me share this with you. So this is what I was ultimately able to put together based on the AI tech. If I can find it. Based on the AI tech. And I'm really impressed, that we're here. This was all the AI generated visuals and also animated using different AI tools. And of course, I'm bouncing around as we talked about between a whole bunch of different tools in order to get this done. But here we go. So here is what I've got so far. Experience the Christmas story like it has never been told before, from the perspective of the angels at war. The third heaven is in tumult as Michael and his host war against Prince Lucifer and his rebels. In the midst of the violence, God Almighty has chosen to be born into the world as an innocent and defenseless babe. The Archangel Gabriel has been dispatched to make arrangements for the birth, but with him goes Sataniel, the angel who tortured Job and slew his children many years before. No one knows what torment he has come to wreak upon Judea, but Gabriel is keeping his sword close at hand. The Trial of St. Gabriel, the dark story of the Christmas massacre, written by E.H. Robinson. Get it today. So that's the way I'm going with that. So I'm going to fix it up a little bit tonight. I could keep going with it. I could keep just plowing forward with it and doing more and more and more, but that's not the purpose. The purpose was to get a Kickstarter video done and also to dive into the AI tech and learn how to use this technology. And I was able to come up with that. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm extremely excited about it. I think it's going to allow us to do more and more and more going forward, and finally be able to allow me to bring the kinds of things out that I am that I'm looking for, that I want to do. So the goal is to start 2,000 words a day. As long as I get them in, I'll be happy to not write at midnight. I'm too old for that. Yeah, but not going to start early. Let's see. Also, if you're on NaNoWriMo, let's see. Let me post some extra links here. We're going to get started here in just a second. But do come down. Here is the link to let's see, the Raven Keep Discord server. Come on in. There is a NaNoWriMo. There is a NaNoWriMo channel. I got a bunch of channels. We're going to get those cleaned up. I haven't had time to do that yet. But the Raven Keep Discord server is right there, especially if you're doing NaNoWriMo. There's a NaNoWriMo place in there. You can also, I'm Heath R on the NaNoWriMo website if you want to connect there. I got my main car back yesterday, so I am mobile. But I brought in a secondary vehicle so that if this doesn't if this happens again, that I have another vehicle, because I'm out here in the country, so it's not like I can just Uber. And I think that all that is wrong with this other car is that it has like a super dead battery, and I couldn't get the battery charged without another vehicle. So now that I have my other vehicle, I'm going to try to just charge the battery off of this other vehicle. So I'm hoping it's not that big a deal. I'm hoping that's the only problem. We will see. Oh, yeah, here was writing day. Not trying to cheat before that. Yes, that's a much better. Yes, I got Job figured out. He's coming for all the babies of Judea, for starters. There's the limitation of the AI, but it doesn't want to do explicit, like trying to do painful sores or red sores, or I had to kind of be creative with that, because that was apparently not something that was Midjourney really wanted to do. Daniel says, I like it. Great. Excellent. And Phaserist says, wow, that's crazy you're able to do that with AI. Yeah, it's not a one-stop shop. It's not a one-stop shop. It's not like you just, hey, I need a Kickstarter video for this, and type in one prompt and then out comes that. That's not the way this works. But it is that's what we're able to do, bouncing around between a whole bunch of stuff. And James says, yes. And James, we have an official NaNoWriMo group as well. Group on the NaNoWriMo site. Drop your ID in the Discord in that channel. Put your NaNoWriMo ID in that NaNoWriMo channel on our Discord, where you'll be added to the NaNoWriMo group on the NaNoWriMo website. All right, let's get started with this. We got to do our reading. I got my drink here, and then we're going to bring up remove this. All right, we're actually going into book 3 on the War of Art here. So everybody, grab your favorite drink. Let's do it. 2 deep breaths, complete exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. So here we go. And sip. There. All right. It is a lot of NaNoWriMo. I'm also wanting to turn that Christmas story into a script. So if for some reason I get stuck on Rabavania or I'm not quite ready to start Rabavania, I'm trying really hard for that. But just in case, I've got a backup project because that one's already structured because I got the short story. That one's already structured. So we will see. All right. Book 3 in the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, Beyond the Resistance, The Higher Realm. The first duty is to sacrifice to the gods and pray them to grant your thoughts. The first duty is to sacrifice to the gods and pray them to grant you the thoughts, words, and deeds likely to render your command most pleasing to the gods, and to bring yourself, your friends, and your city to the fullest measure of affection and glory and advantage. That's Zephanon, the cavalry commander. Angels in abstract. Oh, look, we got an angel theme here this morning. Angels in the abstract. In the next few chapters, we're going to be about these invisible psychic forces that support and sustain us in our journey toward ourselves. I plan on using terms like muse and angels. Does that make you uncomfortable? If it does, you have my permission to think of angels in the abstract. Consider these forces as being personal as gravity. Maybe they are. It's not hard to believe, is it, that a force exists in every grain and seed to make it grow, or that in every kitten or colt is an instinct that impels it to run and play and learn. Just as resistance can be thought of as personal, I've said resistance loves such and such and hates such and such. It can be viewed as a force of nature as impersonal as entropy or molecular decay. Similarly, the call to growth can be conceptualized as personal, a daemon or genius or angel or muse, as it is impersonal, like the tides of transitioning, like the tides or the transiting of Venus. Either way works, as long as we're comfortable with it. Or if extra dimensionality doesn't sit well with you in any form, think of it as talent, programmed into our genes by evolution. The point, for the thesis I'm seeking to put forward, is that there are forces that we can call our allies. As resistance works to keep us from becoming who we were born to be, equal and opposite powers are counterpoised against it. These are our allies and angels. All right, so we'll stop there because we got to go to this other book. So we'll talk about approaching the mystery and invoking the muse tomorrow. All right, so now got this new Kindle software here. Let's see what's going on with Pen the Sword. And you can get this. It might be, I checked this morning. Let's see, that looks better. I checked this morning, and here's the link to Pen This Sword. And it looks like at the moment it still says the Kindle is free, paperback $6.99. I'll put the link in here. Pen the Sword. Let's see how useful this one is going to be to us as we are trying to. They've ended up being the perfect books for NaNoWriMo prep. So that's the link to Pen the Sword. If you find this one useful, then you can check it out to get it and finish reading today. So here we go. So Pen the Sword. The universal plot skeleton of every story ever told by Adron J. Smitley. This is from 2018. See, nonfiction, the Soothsayer series. This looks like the Soothsayer series must be his main fantasy novels right here. Fiction fantasy, the Soothsayer series, Veilfall, Jinn, Powerless, and God's Eye. Title pending, novel forthcoming. Okay, our contents here are the core element, the old world stasis, the new world flux, things come together, false victory, things fall apart, false defeat, false solution, true resolution, the master plan. Okay, let me see if I can. Should be able to increase size, right? Yeah, okay, now I think you should also be able to see it on the screen. All right. The core element, every story ever told, every movie ever filmed, every novel ever written follows the universal plot skeleton in this book because it's the most logical yet dramatic process to resolve a life-changing issue newly encountered. And when things come down to it, that's what all stories are about, right? Someone striving to resolve a life-changing issue they've never dealt with before, which ultimately ends in triumph or less often tragedy. Either a major problem or a big opportunity, a world breaker or a world saver, a whopper or a whopper of a doozy. You say you failed your driver's test because you forgot to signal, so what? I failed mine because I drove over an old lady after crashing through a school bus full of blind nuns. You say you got a pay raise at work, big deal. I just inherited 100 million smackaroos and a haunted mansion to boot. Dwight V. Swain, author of The Techniques of the Selling Writer, said it best, and I'll paraphrase. All stories contain one fundamental desire when you break them down to their absolute bare cores. The protagonist seeks to obtain or achieve one of three outcomes above all else. 1, possession of something. 2, relief from something. Or 3, revenge for something. As the writer, this is where you begin. The story elements not only tell you the beginning of your story, but also its ending, all in 3 little words. Can I highlight in this? Yes. All right. Once you know the fundamental element of your story, and then you know its core. And once you know its core, you won't be led astray because every scene must in some way revolve around this one core element. Don't Tom Bombadil a scene, in other words. If it doesn't, then it belongs in a different story. The core element is the reason why your story exists and why you need to tell it. Without this core element, there is no story, period. So this may be, like you were talking about, James, something that's like suggested to highlight because other people have. Oh, yeah, 10 other people highlighted this part of the book. Okay, well, then we'll highlight it too. How do you know which of these 3 is your story's core element? That depends on your inciting incident, aka the catalyst, because the inciting incident creates the reason why your protagonist seeks possession of, relief from, or revenge for something. Okay, you can see, I can see you're anxious for an example, so I'll give you one. So I would say, where would I be writing here? Trying to possess something, relief from something, or revenge for something. I'll have to think about that. Let us say murder is your inciting incident. You don't yet know how or why or to whom. All you know is a murder tickles your muse and you want to start from there. So let's keep it simple with a plain old-fashioned hammer to skull murder. Bundles of conflict all snarled up into one simple word. You've already made it your first decision because the inciting incident is either a major problem or a big opportunity, and murder is obviously a major problem. Now you have 3 options: possession, relief, revenge, but a whole plethora of roads to begin. Maybe your protagonist wants revenge for the murder committed against a loved one because lawful justice won't satisfy their aching thirst. Maybe they want to gain possession of necessary evidence to convict the murderer in question because the police are morons who couldn't plug their bungs with one of their thumbs. Maybe they witnessed the crime and are now being stalked by the murderer and seek relief from the chaos. Or maybe they've committed the murder themselves in the heat of passion and... See how easy that was? As soon as you choose a particular inciting incident, you immediately have at least 3 options to pick from, which then begins branching your untold story into an endless array of possibilities. With murder as the inciting incident, you have a beginning because you obviously have to set things up before the murder. Then comes the murder itself. So what is... how is that in terms of Luke Skywalker? So in this case, he's got something. He's got... he hears he hears Prince Leia's call. He's not after revenge. Well, I guess that's relief. So I guess in the abstract, when I was thinking about relief from something, I was thinking about like a curse on top of you. But he's looking for relief from the Empire. So it's by blowing up the Empire that you get relief. Let's see if other people agree. James says, I think that relief core is likely the one with the most poetic license. Relief can apply to a situation, an object, or even an order. You can want relief from responsibility or a charged quest, a cursed object, an impoverished life. Yeah, so he wants to, because I was going, okay, Luke Skywalker wants to become a Jedi like my father before me. So that would be his desire there. I don't know if that counts as possession or not. the possession of something, of course, in general. So that could be the status of a Jedi Knight. But really, it seems like what we're being driven from is relief from the Empire. We're being tormented by the evil Empire, and we need relief from it. Curious to know what other people think. Post it in the comments. I can see your... Oh, so we talked about an example. With murder as the inciting incident, you have a beginning because obviously you have to set things up before the murder. Then the murder itself, which mucks things around for everybody, especially the victim. And then, depending on the circumstances of the murder, you decide which course of action your protagonist takes. And whether possession, relief, or revenge, you now have an ending because your protagonist either achieves said possession, relief, or revenge, or they don't. Wants to be a Jedi, I'd put in possession, status, training, ability. Yeah, I would say that too. That if that's the direction that you're going, I would put that under possession as well. Status, training, ability. Yeah, I agree. Pantsers, take note, because this is where you come in. Don't like knowing the end of your story before you get there? Of course you don't, because you're a pantser. You enjoy not knowing until you actually write it. And that's perfectly fine because nobody says you must know the ending. Just because you choose possession, relief, or revenge as your ending doesn't actually make it so. What this does is allow your pantsing muse wiggle room to create that wonderful, unexpected twist that all readers enjoy. You have an idea of what might happen, and so plant inviting breadcrumbs along the way to lead your reader along as well as yourself. Everyone assumes your protagonist is going to eventually obtain or achieve their desired possession, relief, or revenge, and then bam, you hit them upside the head with a twist ending they'll never expect because you never expected it until you wrote it yourself. Possibilities spilling all over the place. Watch your feet. The protagonist gets their revenge at long last, and then bam, they find out the victim was also the victim who was blackmailed into murder by a serial killer. Or your protagonist gets their relief from the hunt, and then bam, only to find the murderer isn't dead or in prison after all, but is now their new mailman or neighbor, and nobody but them is the wiser. Or your protagonist gets their possession, and then bam, the evidence also places them at the scene of the original crime as an accomplice, and they're locked away with the murderer as their new cellmate. Grab the bunk, punk, because you're serving booty duty. But maybe you haven't decided on a particular inciting incident just yet. Okay, let's work backwards instead of forwards. What kind of ending do you want? Triumph or tragedy? Does your protagonist eventually gain possession of, relief from, or revenge from something? Let's choose possession. And not in the literal sense in this example. You want a happy ending with your protagonist getting the girl of his dreams. He has her at the end. At some point, he didn't have her because he hadn't met her yet. Or maybe he did, but lost her by becoming a gambling drunk. Or maybe she was his best friend's girl. And you see where I'm going with this? Plot doesn't place restrictions. It offers opportunities. And hey, if you're here, please do hit the like button. Hit the like button so that this stream goes out to other people who may be subscribed, but YouTube isn't showing them this stream algorithmically. That is a help. So that's how it's not just a vanity thing about getting likes on a particular video. That's how YouTube knows people are enjoying it here, and that should potentially put this stream out to other people, whether they're here live sitting here or whether they're sitting on YouTube now and don't know we're live, or will watch it on replay. So please do hit that. Okay, so plot doesn't place restrictions. It offers opportunities. Now I like that because we've been talking about how I often say how creativity thrives off of restrictions, that some people are like, hey, I can be most creative when I have no restrictions at all. I can do whatever I want. Okay, yeah, if you can do whatever you want, then what exactly are you going to do? But once you actually get some restrictions, you start narrowing it down and you realize you actually to something that's concrete and is actually doable. Oh, you can't do whatever you want. This script only can be 90 to 120 words. You can't do a 300-page script. And likewise, a 30-page script won't work. So already you're having a restriction as an example. Plot, but here in this case, plot doesn't place restrictions. It offers opportunities. How about another example for the sake of fun? Your protagonist seeks relief from something. How about debt? Debt sucks, and everyone's had it at one time or another, and so it's relatable. For your protagonist to be in debt, she first needs to be out of debt. So now we have a beginning with your protagonist living a happy-go-lucky life, owing nobody nothing. Eventually, everything's hunky-dory. She moves out of her parents' house with a bright future ahead, takes a chance, and spends her entire savings as a down payment for a big loan on an expensive new car to ensure she has a dependable ride to work every day. But that's okay because her first check will cover her bills. Then the inciting incident happens because we need to put the protagonist into debt. She's on her way to work in the new car when, bam, she's sideswiped and her poor car sits in twisted ruins. Delirious, she's pulled from the flaming wreckage and, no, that's not good enough. An inciting incident is life-changing, world-breaking. So let's really pile it on her with a major problem. She's driving to work in her new car. After a night of partying with her friends, after celebrating moving out of her parents' house and being on her own for the first time. But she drank too much, and so she's chugging coffee to sober up while taking back roads, hoping no cops spot her erratic driving, and praying her new boss doesn't notice the bags under her red eyes or the smell of skunk beer on her breath. Or bam, she swerves to miss a giant pothole, and bam, bam, she runs over an old lady crossing the street. He really likes running over old ladies, I've noticed. She gets out. Nobody's around. She blisters the air with a strong string of Hail Marys around the huge dent in the car, or the hood of her car, and then panics at all the blood. She dumps the old lady in her trunk like a sack of dog food and peels away. Drives to the secluded place where the star quarterback Jimmy Forehands tried to take her virginity back in high school after prom. Pops her car into neutral and pushes it into the lake where it disappears into a bubbling plunge. Now she has no car, no way to work, is a murderer, and she still has to pay off her loan to the car rusting at the bottom of the lake humps a lot. Oh, wait, she can just claim somebody stole the car. Perfect. That'll excuse her from paying off the loan while explaining her lateness to work. Too bad she spent every last dollar on the car loan and couldn't afford insurance. It's important to remember that the inciting incident happens to the protagonist. The inciting incident happens to the protagonist. I'll use The Matrix as an example. Good morning, Robert. Good morning. Morning of death. Morning. A death mark is not an easy thing to live with. Right. James says, I 100% agree with that philosophy. Restriction is the best environment for creativity. Looking at how Nintendo Entertainment System's 8-bit games are coded proves out that restriction thesis all by itself. Yeah, that is a different type of restriction. Hey, we got this restriction on the particular system constraints, and that as they got better and learned how to use the system more and more, they got better. But the also, I was thinking about, we could think about that in terms of the AI. So right now, yeah, we could only do, like I managed to do what I did on that Kickstarter video you saw earlier. So that's a restriction of the tech. So I could wait around forever, but to do something else with it when it can do Gladiator or something like that all in one. But nonetheless, so this is the technology. Here's how we actually, here's our restrictions. So we got to figure out how to use that creatively in order to make something. PH says, thinking about how wife restrictions make husband's creativity go off the chart. How wife restrictions make husband's creativity go off the chart. All right, let's use The Matrix as an example here. What's the inciting incident of The Matrix? The movie opens with the agents attempting to chase down Trinity so they can get to Morpheus because only Morpheus has the access code to the last human city, Zion, uncontrolled by the machine overlords. Trinity is talking to Cypher about Neo while watching Neo, and the agents tap the phone line and zeroed in on her position. They chase Trinity down in an epic action opener, but she gets away by the skin of her teeth. Only now the agents know Neo's name, something they didn't know before. Without this key piece of information discovered, nothing in the rest of the Matrix would happen as it does. If the agents didn't find out Neo's name by tapping the phone line, then they would never seek Neo out to use him to get to Morpheus. So this must be the inciting incident, right? Wrong. Because the opening action scene of agents chasing Trinity is not happening to Neo, the protagonist. Like most prologues, the opener of The Matrix is about the protagonist, but without the protagonist. Remember, the inciting incident must happen to the protagonist, and it must introduce the protagonist to the story's main conflict. The real inciting incident of The Matrix is when the agents arrest Neo at work and take him into interrogation. They tell Neo he will be found guilty of virtually every computer crime we have a law for if he doesn't help them capture Morpheus. Major problem. And it not only introduces Neo, the protagonist, to the story's main conflict, but also establishes Neo's precious want of obtaining relief from the agents and thus his freedom from the machine overlords enslaving all of humankind. So he's saying this is a relief one. Neo's precious want of obtaining relief from the agents. So in that case, that's kind of like relief from the evil empire. And thus his freedom from the machine overlords enslaving all of humankind. If Neo immediately has to fight Agent Smith, which he does so here on a smaller scale in the interrogation room, he will lose. They seal his mouth shut and implant a tracking bug into his stomach as proof of that much. Because Neo lacks the essential need of believing in himself to be the one, so you have an essential need here. He needs to believe himself. That one's an easy one. His reward for believing himself as the one is the Matrix is actually just an illusion, and once he realizes the truth, he becomes the one and can manipulate the physics of the digital world. At the midpoint, Neo is even told by the Oracle that he's not the one, though this is a trick she plays on him to help him nudge him into the abandoning his precious want for his essential need. What he eventually does, and then is rewarded with both want and need in the end. So he gets both. Which he eventually does, and is rewarded with both want and need by the end. But maybe you prefer a big opportunity instead of a major problem for an inciting incident. Okay, everyone is familiar with the movie Rocky, so it makes for a perfect example. Rocky Balboa is living his life as a bum boxer and hired muscle for the local loan shark, Tony Gazzo. He's scraping by just fine, but his life isn't anywhere near as satisfying, consider practically everyone dismisses him as a loser going nowhere fast. Even Rocky doesn't respect himself. The movie opens with Rocky in a boxing match against Spider Rico to contrast the final fight against Apollo Creed. Two bum boxers duking it out in their dark hole of a small arena. Rocky is out of shape and swinging wild punches. Between rounds, his corner man offers advice, but Rocky ignores it. He's used to doing things on his own, and that's how he likes it. I should go back and watch Rocky again as well. Neo's flaw versus okay, this is great. Neo's flaw versus virtue argument is doubt versus faith. Yes, I got you on that one. Star Wars, we talk about faith versus tech, but here we're talking about doubt versus faith. Yeah, I like that. So I should also watch Rocky again. I might have to watch. I said I was going to watch. I see. I don't know if I have enough time this afternoon. If I have to watch the all of How to Train Your Dragon as well, but I wanted to do that. I could watch The Matrix again too. Rocky would be great for table talk. It sure would. I think that one's on the list. Let me see if that one's on the list. Uh-oh, right here. Rocky. Rocky and Rocky 4. How to Train Your Dragon is such a great movie. And to me, it's the perfect opening 8 minutes. Like if you want to, I've watched the opening 8 minutes, which you can find on YouTube over and over and over again. And then compared the opening 8 minutes to what's in the script. I got a copy of the script as well. Of course, you can just find it online. Because it's the battle scene, it goes fast. It's like the opening 12 pages of the script is the first 8 minutes, nearly 9 minutes of the movie, basically 9 minutes of the movie. That movie, that opening tells you, opens on action, and it delivers you information about the world right before you need to know it. Like he will deliver a sentence, and that way you know exactly what's going to happen on the screen in the next few seconds. It does it really well. And it also uses the almost a hero philosophy that Hiccup is almost a hero. He's not zero to hero. Hiccup already is extremely capable when you meet him. He's just not quite there yet. And he's not respected for what he can do by his community. Okay, so he's used to doing things his own way, Rocky is. And that's how he likes it. Spider delivers a headbutt, and Rocky flies into a rage, pummeling Spider to the mat and then continuing to pummel him until the ref breaks them apart, and Rocky ekes out a win. After which, Rocky asks for a cigarette on his way to the locker room where he gets paid small change for the fight. Then one day, boxing promoter George Gerons offers the Italian stallion a rare shot at the world heavyweight boxing champion Apollo Creed, and Rocky's world is forever changed. Now, that's one big opportunity if I've ever heard of one. And it does something all inciting incidents do, along with introducing change to the protagonist's ordinary world. It establishes the protagonist's precious want. The protagonist's precious want is what they believe will make them happy. Rocky's precious want is to go the distance with Apollo Creed by training on his own so he can prove he's not the loser everyone thinks he is. In core element terms, his precious want is possession of the respect of others. In core element terms, his precious want is the possession of the respect of others. But if you immediately put Rocky in the ring with Apollo, Rocky wouldn't last more than a few rounds at most, because he lacks his essential need. His essential need is what will truly make the protagonist happy. And Rocky's essential need is to respect himself by training properly with help and to prove that he's a worthy contender. In core element terms, his essential need is possession of self-respect. He wants the respect of others, but he needs to respect himself. Good morning, Jason. Good morning. Good to see you. If you don't respect yourself, you can't expect anyone else to, which just so happens to be the mortal theme of Rocky. If you don't respect yourself, then you can't expect anyone else to. But wait, you say, that's two core elements, and you said there can only be one. You lied, and now I hate your face. Patience, grasshopper. There is only one. If you remove Rocky's essential need, his precious want alone will earn him only failure and disgrace because he cannot go the distance with Apollo Creed by training on his own. That is why the dominant core element becomes his essential need. Rocky can only go the distance with Apollo Creed by accepting Mickey's wiser training. But Rocky must learn this. Ergo, when he first chases after his precious want before abandoning it with his essential need. At the midpoint, Mickey offers to train Rocky, but Rocky refuses and throws a tantrum because he's still angry over Mickey giving his gym locker away after his terrible performance against Spider Rico. He punches the door repeatedly while screaming and shouting his frustrations about his dissatisfying life and how Apollo is going to punch his head in. These fateful words symbolize Rocky glimpsing his essential need as compared to his precious want. This is Rocky's why moment of inner reflection played out through his temper tantrum, and this why moment occurs at every midpoint. TSL Frontman says, oh, lovely summary. After his temper tantrum, Rocky chases after Mickey, apologizes, and accepts his offer for training. Thus, Rocky takes his first steps toward abandoning his precious want of going the distance with Apollo Creed by training on his own for his essential need of obtaining his self-respect by accepting the wiser tutelage of Mickey as his trainer. Without his self-respect and Mickey's mentoring, Rocky would have been beaten to a bloody pulp by Apollo, wouldn't have proven all of his naysayers right, and wouldn't have lasted more than a few rounds at best. But with his self-respect earned through Mickey's mentoring, Rocky becomes all heart and no quit and goes the distance like the true contender he becomes. Thus Rocky's character growth. By finally accepting Mickey's mentoring, Rocky acquires the physical and spiritual means to go the distance with Apollo, something he has sorely lacked before. Rocky abandons his precious want of going the distance with Apollo by training on his own for his essential need of earning his self-respect through Mickey's training and is rewarded with both. Rocky is a rags to riches story of the spirit. Want more examples of want versus need? Sure. We like want versus need around here. Captain America. Oh, we've talked about Captain America. Let's see what Captain America is right here. we talked about Captain America with the distinction between when I like to distinguish between villain and antagonist. I use Captain America as my example, and we had different discussions about that. So I'm interested to see what Captain America, what is talked about with regard to Captain America here. Captain America, the first Avenger. The inciting incident occurs when weak yet courageous Steve Rogers is drafted into the army by kind Dr. Abram Erskine, who sees something special in Steve and then injects him with the super soldier serum, big opportunity, which transforms Steve into the ultimate physical specimen. After which one of Johann Schmidt's undercover minions murders the kind doctor and steals the only remaining vial of the serum. Steve chases the minion down, then the minion swallows a poisoned capsule and dies after a Hail Hydra. Steve's precious want is now revenge against Johann Schmidt, who actually is the Red Skull and leader of Hydra, and Hydra who intends on taking over the world with the twisted Nazi ideals. The precious want, he says, is revenge against Johann Schmidt, who is actually the Red Skull. But Steve is a soldier when you strip everything away, and soldiers take orders instead of giving them. And though Steve has become a perfect physical specimen, he still lacks real-world combat experience. If Steve battled Johann Schmidt, the Red Skull, immediately after he was injected with the super soldier serum, Steve would have lost the battle because he hasn't yet learned to be a true leader through real-world combat experience. Ergo, Steve's essential need is to become a true leader through real-world combat experience. The first Avenger is my favorite Marvel movie, James says. At first, as Captain America, the other soldiers laugh at Steve. At first, as Captain America, the other soldiers laugh at Steve and think he's a joke because he dances around and sings on stage in a goofy suit while they face the enemy on the real stage of life and death battle. But after Steve stops being a soldier following orders and takes his first true steps, toward becoming a leader at the midpoint by taking the initiative and leaving on his own, then saving a bunch of soldiers along with his best pal Bucky Barnes, while risking life and limb, the other soldiers begin respecting Steve as Captain America. Because of this, Captain America is able to defeat Red Skull. Then Steve performs the ultimate leader sacrifice of self-sacrifice. A true leader never asks of anyone what they would not do themselves, and crashes the Hydra plane with him in it, along with the Tesseract, before the plane can reach the United States and kill millions of people. Steve abandons his precious want of revenge against the Red Skull without any combat experience for his essential need of becoming a true leader through combat experience, and is rewarded with both. Oh, Lynn is also a fan of the first Avenger. Let's see. So our analysis of this had previously been that we have a setup here where actually the villain is facilitating what the character actually wants, because Steve Rogers wants to fight. It's as simple as that. He wants to fight, and his antagonist, the thing that is stopping him from fighting this entire time, is the U.S. government. The U.S. government is constantly telling him that he cannot fight. So the thing that is in his way is not the Red Skull who's constantly preventing him from fighting. No, Steve Rogers wants to fight badly. And yet the U.S. government constantly tells him that he can't. And so eventually he has to overcomes the U.S. government. And that's because the villain of the movie, the Red Skull, is so powerful that it's something that only Captain America can defeat. And so once the obstacle of the U.S. government is removed, Steve gets what he wants, finally able to fight, and goes in to fight the Red Skull. TSL frontman, and that's why the end is okay. We're beating up the Red Skull, but but what Steve wanted is already taken care of because he wanted to fight. TSL frontman says, going from a completely selfless reflection of external ideals, the ideal soldier, into having a proud identity. I am Steve Rogers. Describe a movie as boring as possible. Captain America, World War II vet, sets achievable relationship goals, takes nap instead. I can't shake off the meme. When you realize Captain America is actually Captain Puerto Rico. I don't get the reference. At first, Captain America is the other soldier. At first. Oh, wait, we just said that. We've looked at that. Okay, we're going into Unforgiven now. Unforgiven, which just happens to be my favorite movie. William Money is a notorious murderer and infamous gunfighter with a vicious temperament, now turned poor pig farmer with 2 children and a dead wife. Will was an alcoholic in his murdering and thieving days, but has since spent the past many years living in abstinence and loving memory of his wife. The inciting incident occurs when the Schofield kid with the show. God. The inciting incident occurs when the Schofield kid shows up and offers Will a chance at a bounty on some cowboys who cut up the face of a local whore, Delilah Fitzgerald. The money will provide Will's children a better life, and he's been providing them as a poor pig farmer. Big opportunity. But Will initially turns down the kid's offer because he hasn't touched a gun or bottle in years, and he reluctantly accepts and chases the kid to secure his own children. Then he reluctantly accepts and chases after the kid to secure his 2 children a better future. The costume. Oh, the costume has 1 star and 3 stripes, depending on the era and the art. Oh, and that's the flag of Puerto Rico. Yeah. Okay, I didn't get it. Will's precious want becomes a possession of the bounty to provide his 2 children a better life through monetary means. Okay, precious want, possession of the bounty. But if Will had to immediately gun down the cowboys, he wouldn't have survived the gunfight. Will's essential need is to make peace with his murderous past, still haunting him, and learn to kill for the right reasons instead of the wrong reasons, as was before. But Will cannot make peace with his past in his current state of abstinence. He's gone from living a life of absolute indulgences to a life of absolute abstinence to ensure he doesn't revert into this old, cold-blooded killer he once was. At the midpoint, Will is beaten to within an inch of his life by Little Bill, the sheriff of Big Whiskey, for being an assassin after a bounty. Will slinks away and is taken to a barn where his pals, where he slowly recovers and sits with Delilah herself. He not only sees her scarred face, but also the innocent woman behind those scars. During their talks, he realizes the true value of the bounty, money versus justice, and takes his first steps toward abandoning his precious want for his essential need. It's only after Will makes peace with his past and applies the moral of everything in moderation that he's able to deliver proper Western justice upon the cowboys who cut up Delilah Fitzgerald and obtain the bounty to secure his children a better future. Will has gone from indulgences to abstinence to moderation and achieved true synthesis. He abandons his precious want of obtaining the monetary reward of the bounty by killing for the wrong reasons, for his essential need of making peace with his tortured past by delivering justice for Delilah Fitzgerald, and is rewarded with both. Oh, we got Star Wars here. All right, Star Wars, A New Hope. Luke Skywalker is a dreamer stuck farming with his aunt and uncle. The inciting incident occurs when the 2 droids show up with a holographic message from a pretty princess seeking help. Big opportunity. Then the Empire wants to kills Luke's aunt and uncle while hunting for the droids. Luke's precious want is now revenge against the Empire. Oh, interesting. So here he's saying that Luke's precious want is revenge against the Empire for the death of Owen and Beru. So the holographic message, the inciting incident occurs when 2 droids show up with a holographic message from a pretty princess seeking help. Big opportunity. But if you immediately struck Luke in the X-Wing fighter and he had to make that impossible shot which blows up the Death Star, he would have missed. Luke's essential need is to learn the ways of the Force by trusting and believing in something he cannot see. So, okay, so we do have, yes, tech versus faith. So now, so that's interesting that he wants revenge, but he needs to learn the ways of the Force. What do we think about that here? When he does, trusting the Force, then using it to guide his impossible shot that blows up the Death Star, Luke abandons his precious want of revenge against the Empire for his essential need of Jedi training and is rewarded with both. I think in that case, the revenge needs to be hit harder. It seems like that first thing with Rocky, Rocky wanting to do this all by himself is an important part of this and really played up a lot. I'm not sure that revenge. I don't think I would have said that. Well, I didn't when we were looking at this earlier. So that's interesting. That's interesting. What do you think about that? So we were trying to analyze it. What do you think here? Let me know. I could list a million more examples of inciting incidents, whether major problem or big opportunity, but I think you get the point. Find the core element of your story, and the story practically writes itself. That's another one of those lines right there. But maybe your mind is a total blank. Maybe your muse took a vacation without leaving so much as a note behind. Maybe you have absolutely no idea what you want to write, only that you want to write something. Don't use your muse as an excuse not to write. Instead, use the dice method. Some people have some dice lying around someplace, usually the six-sided kind from that dusty box of Monopoly you haven't played in years but never found the time to throw out. Grab one. On a piece of paper, write down numbers 1 through 6. Pick 2 at random and write possession. Pick another 2 and write relief. For the last 2, write revenge. Now roll. Whatever comes up is your new core element. Go from there. Utilizing the core element, you can write your novel starting from the beginning or starting from the end, or both. But what about starting from the middle? Is it possible to write from there? Oh, yes, definitely. But we'll get into some more on that particular tasty tidbit with all the magnificent details of the tragic twist once we pursue the universal plot skeleton of every story ever told, the bones of which I will break down in detail. So here's the universal plot skeleton of every story ever told. Adversity builds character. I know. That's not exactly what you were hoping for. But those 3 little words are the universal truth of every story. Those 3 little words are the universal truth of every story. Without adversity, there is no plot. Without adversity, there is no character growth. Without adversity, there is no triumph or tragedy. Without adversity, there is no story. So let's break down adversity builds character for both plotter and pantser, shall we? Behold, the real universal plot skeleton of every story ever told. Nah, I always used to swipe the dice for my risk set. More dice there to swipe. Luke wanted to join the rebellion and fight the Empire, but after his aunt and uncle are killed, it becomes focused into revenge. Before that, he only agreed to drive Ben to the port and then stay behind. Thor says, Casey, not really sure I agree. Luke wanted revenge. What he wanted was adventure and glory. James says, I need to think on this a bit. My gut reaction is there's more nuance to Skywalker, but the whole point of these books is cutting through the fluff, so I'll need to turn it over for a bit. I think that's what was meant. So continuing here. Yeah, I think that was meant. Yeah, but see, I guess the way that I had been thinking about that is that you need to. When we studied Star Wars, the first one, we talked about overcoming a threshold guardian to get from Act 1 into Act 2, and it happened to be the case that Luke doesn't overcome his threshold guardian. But because this movie is taking a little longer to get started than is standard because it includes a lot of stuff at the beginning. And so the thing that's really preventing Luke from leaving is Uncle Owen. It's Uncle Owen who's keeping him down. He wants to go off, yes, on this life of adventure, but can't. So in many stories, he would overcome his threshold guardian. He would overcome Baru and Owen and leave. But in this one, the Empire takes care of his threshold guardian for him by killing them. I mean, it's kind of rough, but then now he's free to go because there's nothing for him there anymore. And then we go right into Act 2. Thor KC says, adventure, heh, excitement, heh, a Jedi seeks not these things. Abandon precious want for essential need. I would say that's an important core of Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, I think that is. You want adventure, but you need discipline, which is what Yoda's trying to tell him. So what does he do? Luke goes off on an adventure to go and save the Cloud City, save his friends at the Cloud City. So that's a want. That's what he wants, but he's not doing right in that case, which is why he loses. He does not do what Yoda says, which is why we end up in defeat. Okay, behold, let's go for a few more minutes here, as I want to go through this because I need this information for my plotting. Let's go for a little bit longer. Now that we've finally gotten to the real universal plot skeleton of every story ever told, Act 1. The old world stasis, the new world flux. Act 2A, things come together. 4, the false victory. Act 2B, things fall apart. 6, false defeat. Act 3, false solution. 8, true resolution. And now with brief descriptions. The old world stasis, the protagonist's introduction in their ordinary world, is established by a unique and intriguing opening hook, after which the inciting incident, whether a major problem or a big opportunity they've never dealt with before, introduces them to the story's main conflict that disrupts their ordinary world. The new world flux, the impact of the inciting incident on the protagonist's ordinary world forever changed, their emotional then logical reaction, and what they plan on doing about it. They may consult a mentor for the necessary push through before crossing a no turning back threshold as death stakes, physical, professional, or psychological, are established. Things come together. The fish out of water protagonist progresses toward resolving the story's main conflict, achieving more success than failures. The building of a team and allies who learn to work together toward a common goal. Somewhere in the middle of the pinch point, not only a reminder of the antagonist's ongoing plans, or the antagonist's introduction if they haven't been introduced already, but it's also a display of the protagonist's current character growth as shown by their positive reaction to the pinch point. Off-screen, the betrayal setup is plotted into motion if one exists. The false victory. The protagonist achieves their biggest success yet toward resolving the story's main conflict, though not actually resolving the conflict itself. The team of allies working together in perfect tandem are often led by the protagonist, if not the mentor. After which the protagonist is struck stunned by a surprising twist of new key information, causing a reversal of fortune, which shifts them from reaction to proaction from this moment forward, because now the antagonist is fully aware of who the protagonist is and why they must stand in their way. The death stakes, if the protagonist fails, physical, professional, or psychological, are now imminent. I think it's interesting here, it says that a team of allies working together is in perfect tandem and often led by the protagonist, if not the mentor. And if led by the mentor, then probably soon after here, the mentor is going to die. Things fall apart. Everything that has worked well for the protagonist before now fails them. The team of allies they built up crumbles apart through internal dissension as external enemies close in. More failures than successes, while the setup for the betrayal begins to take effect. This is the building up to the punch point, not only a reminder of the antagonist's change of plans, because the protagonist's interference, but also a display of the protagonist's regression, as shown by the negative reaction to the punch point. False defeat. Tools are stripped away or broken, as well as allies captured or killed, leaving the protagonist alone during their lowest point thus far. The betrayal is paid off in full. All is lost as hope is abandoned, until the protagonist is struck by a thunderbolt of inspiration to continue, jolting them out from the despair as they formulate a new plan of attack, against the antagonist and then cross another no turning back threshold, throwing their renewed dedication. The false solution: the protagonist gathers the necessary resources and implements their new plan of attack against the antagonist, while all remaining subplots outside the protagonist are resolved before the inevitable final battle. If allies of the protagonist and minions of the antagonist still exist, they are dealt with here. True resolution: the final battle, protagonist versus antagonist, one-on-one, triumph or tragedy, victory or defeat. There can be only one. But not all stories end in protagonist triumph, ergo the tragedy twist. Mentoring can be a dangerous profession, yes. Because when you're no longer needed, you're probably getting out of there. But not all stories end in protagonist triumph, ergo the tragedy twist. The midpoint, the false victory, and the climax, true resolution, always parallel each other. Yeah, so here we use the word parallel. We had some I think some terminological difficulty there, because at one point we were reading something that said they mirrored each other, which to me, mirroring kind of like implies opposite. So if one is success, one is failure and something, but it's actually so that they should be the same, which is what I thought. Then I read something about mirroring and I got confused. But I like this word parallel better. They don't mirror each other, at least because that has different connotations to me. They parallel each other. The midpoint, false victory, and the climax, true resolution, almost always parallel each other. So if your midpoint is happy, then your climax is a triumph. This also defines the local point between false defeat as an all is lost or an all is joy, because it must be the opposite of the midpoint of the climax. This also defines the point between the false defeat as either all is lost or all is joy, because it must be the opposite of the midpoint and the climax. If your story ends in triumph, then your protagonist experiences a happy midpoint, but a tragic all is lost before the triumphant climax. If your story ends in tragedy, then your protagonist experiences an unhappy midpoint, but a triumphant all is joy before the tragic climax. Think of your story as a roller coaster of emotion traveling both peaks and valleys. The peaks are triumphs and the valleys tragedies, with each peak taller and every valley lower than those previous. Adjust accordingly. For the moment, I want you to think of yourself not as a writer, but as an archaeologist. You're at the dig site and you've just discovered the skeleton of a possible missing link. Bravo! So you take out your archaeologist tools and prepare to unearth the skeleton of your story by chipping away the rock and brushing away the dirt from around the bones through different methods. Pantsers enjoy discovery, while plotters enjoy detection. Pantsers diagnose while plotters analyze. Pantsers are emotional, while plotters are logical. Pantsers search, while plotters locate. Though plotters and pantsers differ in their preferred methods of attack, they represent two sides of the same musing coin. I, by my very nature, am a plotter, though I believe every writer begins as a pantser, until they discover their personal preferred method and choose either left or right at that plotter or pantser fork in the road. I would say that's true, because I would be writing all kinds of things, trying to get things to occur. But they weren't all, none of the words weren't useful, though. And so I hate writing things that aren't going to be used. I've tried pantsing and even wrote a novel doing so, but I found pantsing wasn't for me. And I can already hear all of you plotters out there groaning that the universal plot skeleton I provided you isn't detailed enough for your particular tastes. Good, because I'm not finished with you yet, my fellow plotters, so stop your belly aching and take a gander at the expanded universal plot skeleton of every story structure ever told for real plotters. Act 1, Old World Stasis. Opening hook, save the cat and kick the dog. Oh, so here we got that phrase right here. Opening hook, save the cat and kick the dog. 3, inciting incident. 4, initial reaction. New World Flux. Try fail cycle 1. Try fail cycle 2. Try fail cycle 3. Physical crossing. We have fail, though, in quotation marks here. Act 2, things come together. Fish out of water. 10, friends and enemies in training. Betrayal setup. 12, final training and advice. False victory, big success, empty rewards, midpoint twist, the middle riddle. Act 2B, things fall apart. Rededication, try fail cycle 4. betrayal, influence, tri-fail cycle 5, false defeat, betrayal, payoff, and all is lost. 12, depression, regret, acceptance. 23, inspiration received. 24, spiritual crossing. Act 3, did I say final defeat? That should have been false defeat. I'm not sure. This is false defeat here. Act 3, false solution. Inspiration given. Storming the castle. Subplot wrap-up. Separation. True resolution. All is lost again. All is won. Immediate effects. Sunset of the resolution. He uses kick the dog a bit different than the more widely accepted meaning. Still works. Yeah, hopefully we get an expanded kick the dog here in a moment. It'd be great to at least get to that point here. I will explain each of these 32 bones of the expanded universal plot skeleton in detail and then how best to implement them using the master plan. But have no worries, Panzer. I haven't forgotten about you. I'll also provide you with relevant information for your universal plot skeleton at every stage and leave you to be so you can muse to your adventurous heart's content. Pen the Sword guides plotters by the hand while simply pointing the pantsers in the right direction. And though I have provided suggestions for plotters and pantsers at every stage of your protagonist's journey toward triumph and tragedy, I recommend both of you read the other sections while offering you this. Take what you like, discard what you don't, and then ultimately design a plot skeleton of your own choosing. Learn, adapt, grow, create, and above all, enjoy. So buckle up, because here we go. Though one thing's first. The length of described scenes is entirely up to you, the writer and creator of your story. Just because a stage or section describes a particular scene or scenes doesn't mean you are required to give that section or stage an entire chapter unto itself. Sometimes an entire chapter is necessary to prevent all the information, while other times your story may only require a few paragraphs or even only a few sentences. The lengths of your scenes depends entirely on your particular story. The inciting incident in Rocky, for example, doesn't take place until almost halfway into the movie, whereas most inciting incidents take place much earlier. Your inciting incident might take place 20 pages into your novel, or it might happen 2 pages in. It might require an entire chapter unto itself, or it may only need a few paragraphs to get the job done. This applies to every suggested scene in this entire book. You decide how long or short because you are the writer. If a particular scene only requires a few paragraphs for your particular story, then don't try to force it into the length of an entire chapter. Combine several scenes into one chapter where needed, or you may need to split one chapter into several because it writes exceedingly longer than expected. Either is okay. No one is going to sneak into your house at night and murder you in your sleep because your protagonist spent several chapters throughout friends and enemies and training, or that they endured their tri-fail cycles after the inciting incident all in one chapter. Long chapters do not make great chapters unless your particular story requires them. Neither do short scenes make exciting scenes, unless your particular story requires them. Chapters and scenes should be only as long or as short as your story requires. Oh, and one more thing. Please do not be put off or take it literally when I refer to the protagonist or other character as he or him. I'm a man, so it's my natural inflection to use he or him as common reference to the character. I'm not implying that your protagonist or any of your characters must be male. I've tried to insert she and her where the notion strikes me, though I didn't want this to fill the book with constant he, she, and she, her, alternative gender pronoun options and clutter it with unnecessary confusion. So take the gender pronouns used with a grain of salt. Do we have? Well, let's see how he's laying this out. I want to read this. Probably be reading it on my own. Anyway, okay, so stage 1, the old world stasis. The protagonist's introduction in their ordinary world is established by a unique and intriguing opening hook, after which the inciting incident, whether a major problem or a big opportunity they've never dealt with before, introduces them to the story's main conflict that disrupts their ordinary world. Hey, good morning, Retro Nerd Girl. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. So this is the first bone of the universal plot skeleton, the skull to the rest of the body. Every story must begin somewhere, and here it is. This stage represents your protagonist's mid-action in their old world before, during, and after the main conflict of the story is introduced by the inciting incident and changes the world forever. Every story is divided into 3 acts. Act 1 is the beginning, Act 2 is the middle, split in half into parts A and B because it's twice the size of the others, and then Act 3 is the end. Think of it like a sandwich. Act 1 and 3 are the slices of bread, with Act 2 being the yummy filling. Act 1, the setup, Act 2, the conflict, Act 3, the resolution. The inciting incident is either a major problem or a big opportunity. Usually the protagonist is living a satisfying life is hit with a major problem that only worsens until they decide to act, and the protagonist who is living a dissatisfying life encounters a big opportunity that proves too good to pass up. Because the protagonist's starting state and end state are opposites to show their change throughout the story growth, though this is not always the case. Please consult How to Write Your Novel backwards using the tragedy twist section, page 94, toward the end of this book, for more details on how to decide which is appropriate for your particular story and antagonist. The inciting incident also determines the protagonist's precious want. Depending on your story and protagonist, it will eventually obtain or achieve, or it won't. The it being the core element that is the possession of, relief from, or revenge for something. For Pantsers, Act 1 is all about the setup. You introduce your protagonist to a unique and an intriguing way through an opening hook with showing them their ordinary world doing ordinary things. Now, I don't mean ordinary as in boring. Nobody wants to read about your protagonist sitting bedside clipping their toenails all day. Ordinary simply means if your protagonist is a struggling boxer, then show them boxing. If they're a pirate, then show them pirating. If they're a billionaire businesswoman, then show them closing a multi-billion-dollar deal. Right, this is ordinary for them. Right, what is their ordinary world? If they're a race car driver, then show them racing. Are they happy and living a satisfying life at the beginning, or are they unhappy and living a dissatisfied life? Remember, the starting and ending state of your protagonist are usually opposite states to show the protagonist changes through career growth. A happy beginning doesn't necessarily mean the protagonist's life is perfect ray of sunshine, though. It may mean they're resistant to change because they're used to things the way they are. And an unhappy beginning doesn't necessarily mean everything is horrible either. It just means as long as they long for something more than they currently have. Then along comes the inciting incident, which introduces your protagonist to the first real awareness of the story's main conflict, a disruptor to their ordinary world, be it a major problem or a big opportunity they've never dealt with before. However you choose to introduce your protagonist, make your inciting incident unique and interesting while also introducing the character of their everyday activities, friends and families and rivals and everyone else they normally interact with. The key is to do so mid-action. Don't show us who the protagonist is, and why we should care. The key to do this is in mid-action. Don't tell us who the protagonist is and why we should care. There are a zillion other novels, so why should we read yours? What skill does your protagonist possess that your other characters don't? So do this mid-action. What skills does your protagonist possess that the other characters don't? That's like Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon. He's the inventor, right? He's got that skills that others don't. What flaws? Give me a reason to keep reading and I will. After you set them up, hit with them this life-changing, inciting incident. Do they win it big with the lottery or lose it big as the bank seeks to foreclose on their house? Are they having a new baby or does a loved one commit suicide? Are they finally getting that promotion at work or do they get fired because of downsizing? How do they tangle with it? How do they interact? Why did you choose this particular character as your protagonist instead of another? Whatever your inciting incident, it must make clear the protagonist will seek possession of, relief from, or revenge for something when they finally decide to act. Think of your core element as a new lover. Introduce it to your muse and let them fondle. For plotters, all right, the plotters. Let's take a look at this side. Old World Stasis begins with the opening hook. Obviously named because it's supposed to be to hook your reader into wanting more. They're the big fish and you are the hungry fisherman. The opening hook to your delicious bait. A ton of movies, because they're visual, begin their opening hook with roughly 7 minutes of action, which is the standard prologue action hook of the Hollywood film industry. Really, up to 7 minutes? A ton of movies, because they're visual, begin their opening hook with roughly 7 minutes of action, which is the standard prologue action hook of the Hollywood film industry. We've also often been analyzing that as about 2 minutes. So that's interesting that he says this can last much longer. Now, I would say in How to Train Your Dragon, like I said, that's an 8-minute opening. 8 minutes and change. That one features, we're talking about the prologue, sometimes does not feature the protagonist, but it's about the antagonist. I mean, what's going on? It's an 8-minute action that introduces Hiccup. James says it might be insightful to do a whole grind episode on opening lines and paragraphs. One of the best ever written was, "It was a dark and stormy night in a wrinkle of time." Cliche now, but revelatory. I didn't know that came from A Wrinkle in Time. In its day. Another great one is she had waited her entire lifetime dreaming of the day she'd be kidnapped. I can't recall the book that one's featured in, but it kicks the door in and starts blasting. Opening sentences to opening paragraphs, opening sentences. You're right. That would be a great topic. You want your opening hook to be as interesting and unique as possible. You want it to snag your reader by the lips so you can reel them in begging for more. So make it interesting while showing your protagonist particular traits and skills, their talents, their flaws, their tics and quirks. What separates them from the rest of the crowd? Why are they the protagonist instead of one of the other characters? What can they do the others can't? Also make them best at something, by which I mean if they're clumsy, then have them falling all over the place. If they're smart, then have them outsmarting everyone else in the class. If they're brave, then have them standing up to a bully picking to their friend, even though they know they'll have no chance of winning the fight. That's the almost a hero kind of thing. Or maybe they do it, but not physically. If they're sarcastic by nature, then have them spew forth a string of zingers, embarrassing the bully seconds before they get punched in the nose. However you choose to hook your audience, make sure it's both unique and interesting. Write an intriguing opening hook, then find the latest possible place you can start it, and then cut everything out before that point to better plunge your reader into the action, while also providing just enough information so they're not confused about what's going on, to whom, and why. Start in action. This is the first taste of the protagonist meal, so make it delicious. Save the cat and kick the dog. Okay, so here we go. So let's go through this. Save the cat and kick the dog. After the opening hook comes the save the cat moment, a term coined by Blake Snyder in his Save the Cat series of books on the plot structure of movies. It came about from his noticing that in many older movies, we meet the protagonist and they sometimes literally save a cat stuck up in a tree for the distressed old lady or a little girl owner mewling by the wayside. Though nowadays, save the cat is a metaphor for someone in trouble needing help, to which the protagonist provides a stranger's kindness. Save the cat is meant to make the protagonist likable. We see them do something nice for someone they don't know out from the kindness of their heart, and we can't help but say, "Hey, good job, buddy," because we like to think we'd do that too. Save the cat is followed by kick the dog, and there are usually two separate though related scenes. Nobody likes people who go around kicking dogs. I hate them. You hate them. We all hate dog kickers. But don't get the wrong idea, because your protagonist is not going to literally kick a dog. Instead, they are the dog and someone kicks them. This is meant to invoke sympathy for them. We see something bad happen to them, and usually not because of their own deserving fault, and we can't help but sympathize. But sympathy isn't what's special here. We need empathy. So we set it up by first saving the cat and showing what a likable guy the protagonist is, and then we kick the dog to invoke beyond sympathy into empathy. If we start off with kicking the dog, we might not feel as bad for them after all. Who knows? Maybe the protagonist stole, then ate a live baby before the story began. We barely know the guy, so who cares if someone kicks him, right? Thus, why save the cat comes before kick the dog. So establish empathy over sympathy. 3, the inciting incident. Now that we've established some feels for the protagonist in his ordinary world, he goes about his normal daily business. We hit him hard and fast with the inciting incident. This must be a major problem or big opportunity, and it must be something they've never dealt with before, or else there's no story, because they would simply resolve the issue and then go on about their merry way as before. Failing your driver's test because you forgot to signal is not an inciting incident. Failing your driver's test because you ran over an old lady is. Here is where your core element comes into play. The inciting incident is why your protagonist will eventually seek possession, relief from, or revenge for something. So make it good. Don't just poke them with a sterilized needle, stab them with a poisoned sword. Don't just give them a raise at work, have them inheriting millions from a dying relative. Did you set your protagonist up as living a satisfying life? Then hit them with a major problem. Did you set your protagonist up as living a dissatisfying life? Then hit them with a big opportunity. These are the only two life-changing options. These are not the only two life-changing options available. A satisfied protagonist can also encounter a big opportunity, just like a dissatisfied protagonist can encounter a major problem. But because of the stark contrasts, they make a great beginning. Initial reaction. After the exciting incident occurs, you need an initial reaction from your protagonist. Emotional first, logical second. Not just simply a yay or a boo-hoo either, but something big. The familiarity of their ordinary world has been disrupted as in as permanent a way as you can make it, and they have no idea what to do but scream and shout or jump for joy. For example, imagine coming home and finding your significant other in bed with your best friend. Major problem. Do you apologize for interrupting and back out of the room while gently closing the door? Of course not. You're devastated. You break down emotionally. You're swept away in a confusion of emotions as you have no idea how to deal with because you've never experienced them before. Or imagine leaving work after pulling another double shift. You trudge home in the rain to your tiny apartment, make a bologna sandwich with stale bread because you can't afford anything better. Then you check the stack of overdue bills that's in your mail, and you find a letter informing you a distant relative has died and left you with a fortune. Big opportunity. After hitting the protagonist with the inciting incident, they must react because that's what people do. I can't believe this. Why me? What should I do now? People react to change on an emotional level because people are emotional creatures. They rant and rave or jump for joy. They scream and shout while throwing things or cry happy tears while hugging strangers. They point accusatory fingers before turning the mirror and questioning themselves, or call everyone they know and tell them about their good turn of fortune. Then they calm down. The logical part of their brain kicks in and they process their new situation. They begin figuring out how to resolve the major problem because it's not going away until they do. So no matter how hard they try ignoring it. Or they debate accepting the big opportunity because it seems too good to pass up. And remember this, if you remember nothing else about the old world stasis stage of your story. Home, work, and play. Show your protagonist's home life, their work life, and their life at play, social life. We, the audience, need to relate to your protagonist, and showing them during these three essential phases of their life does just that. You can assemble the three into any combination you wish, because that depends on your particular story, though each must be present at least once. And one will be dominant depending on your particular story and protagonist. Some of us value our families and home life more than our play life with our friends and our work life with our coworkers. Others value their work life over home and play, and others value their play life over work and home. As example, you can make the setting to your opening hook your protagonist's home life, save the cat during their play life, and kick the dog during their home life again. The inciting incident at their work life, the initial reaction during their play life again. And if they're a real drama queen, extend their initial reaction into their home life again as a separate scene. You're a writer. Be creative. Just because a major problem or big opportunity happens to work doesn't mean it stays at home. Same with home and play. People aren't solitary creatures by nature. When something huge impacts our life, we seek out others and share our joys and woes. Even the crusty old hermit snaps at a bumbling stranger when he's having a bad day. Work, home, and play. The number and order you choose is up to you. And don't forget the people in it. The world in a stage of many actors. All right, that takes us to stage 2, the world flux. So if you have been enjoying this and you think this is a good book for you in preparation of NaNoWriMo, well, it is. You can pick it up on Kindle or in softback on Amazon. It might still be free up on the website. I'm not sure. The author kindly donated or put it free on Kindle for us. Adron did for the community here. So look up The Pen and the Sword on Amazon. And hey, let's get to work. For those of you who are joining NaNoWriMo, I'm going to move right into plotting myself. So I might continue personally with this book for a bit and see how it helps me out. I need to finish reading Stomping Kittens. That one was fantastic. So if you need this has been helping, you can also check out the previous live streams we've done, looking through this book series, which is fantastic. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and having the discussion. I love it. Hopefully it helped you. Everybody, go forth, be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later, everybody.